So thank you again for asking me along to talk today. I'm going to talk to you today about weather, landscape, illness, and disability, particularly how living with pain might change your understanding of landscape and atmosphere, and about what Sarah Jaquette Ray and Jay Sabara have called the contingency between environments and bodies, which is central to disability studies. So today I'm going to be talking about and reading from my own creative work, life writing, nonfiction, poetry, and daily experience, as well as drawing on the experiences of others. I'm going to talk for about 35 minutes and leave us plenty of time for questions and discussion so that you don't get overwhelmed, hopefully, as we go through. When we're ill, we say we're under the weather. For chronically ill people, this can be entirely literal. The weather becomes a weight bearing down on us. The mood of the sky has the power over the mood of our bodies. Some of us are cold intolerant, some of us heat intolerant, some both. Some of us shiver all summer, some of us break out in hives at the first sign of spring. Some of us get migraines when a storm is brewing or a wind is building. Some of us can't breathe in the cold. Some of us can't breathe in the heat. Some of us store damp in our bones. There are so many ways the weather can wreck us. When our adversary is as vast and omnipotent as the weather, we are forced to face our vulnerability. We can mitigate the effects of temperature shifts, we can take shade or shelter, but we cannot hide from the atmosphere. We know it can hurt us, but we also know we cannot escape it. This is what our bodies teach us about the world, about nature. There is no benign good, seeping healing to draw on. There are simply forces which act upon us, for better or worse. To shut out the noise of their presence, to feel them as nothing but minor inconvenience, to let them run off your body like water from a duck's back. This is a privilege not available to all. The title of this talk, Pining Earth, on Weather, Landscape and Bodies in Pain, quotes a fragment from the titular sequence in my second poetry collection, Much with Body. The central section of Much with Body is collaged from unpublished journals written by Dorothy Wordsworth later in her life. Dorothy Wordsworth is well known as a diarist, nature writer, poet, travel writer, as a woman who walked and climbed when it was unusual to do so, and as the sister of the poet William. Her journals, kept from 1798 to 1803, are still widely read. In December 1824, not long before her 53rd birthday, Dorothy began again to keep a journal of daily life at home. This she continues, though with pauses, until 1835. These later journals, often called the Rydal Journals, have not been available to the public or to scholars except in manuscript. Unlike the Grasmere Journals, in which you can read Dorothy's vivid accounts of moments, events, and encounters which become some of her brother's most well-loved poems, the Rydal Journals have been judged as more personal and more domestic, and thus lacking in literary merit. Dorothy records visits with neighbours and friends, the weather, and her body. The entries are largely the kind of numerous trivial details that William Knight justified cutting out of his 1887 edition of the earlier journals. Where they interested me in particular was in their record of both the body and the landscape, and the synergy between them. From 1829 to 1835, Dorothy has a series of acute episodes of illness. The last one in 1835 leaves her with a cognitive impairment. She lived another 20 years after this, dying on January 25th, 1855, a month after her 84th birthday, outliving her brother by 5 years. This later Dorothy is completely unknown to most of her readers. Her story is one of disability history, which, like many such histories, has been hidden, overlooked, forgotten. This period of Dorothy's life, and the great scholarly blank around it, became increasingly intriguing and troubling to me as I negotiated my own mystery illnesses and eventually my diagnoses, and came to terms with living with incurable and poorly understood conditions. In 2017, I was asked to contribute to a collaboration responding to Dorothy's Grasmere journals by artist Zoe Benbow and poet Sarah Corbett. Their exhibition, Dorothy's Colour, included landscape painting by Bembo and a sequence of poems in conversation with the Grasmere journals, which became the title sequence of Corbett's A Perfect Mirror. For years, I had been talking with my friend and co-conspirator, apologies for the typo, I don't know what a No, it is a co-conspirator, Dr. Emily Stambach, an expert in romantic disability studies, about the possibility of publishing a collaborative transcription of Dorothy's Rydal journals. We believed that access to the full journals would change the narrative around Dorothy's later years by allowing everyone to see her own words and not their partial summary. But permissions were complicated, as happens. Meanwhile, the Rydal journal still rested in this obscure zone, referred to but not citable, barely accessible even for the few scholars who could travel to Grasmere to see the manuscripts, presupposed, of course, to have no merit in themselves. I realised then that I could bring the Rydal journals to new readers by making them into poems, taking her words and rearranging them to make new meanings. So creatively, I could do what I could not do as an academic, use her words to reveal something about a shared experience of chronic pain and illness, a shared ecosystem of disability. I was attracted by the same things every poet who has used Dorothy's words has been. The sparse beauty of her phrasing, her particular way of seeing things. My findings in Dorothy's late journals became a way to connect experiences, to link parallel body experience in the same place in different times, to find a language for pain and articulation of the body through the repurposing of the words of another. Petra Kuppas has written of how, in multiple ways, pain disrupts the clear boundaries of self and language, truth and embodiment, as a history of poetic practices by people in pain shows. By combining Dorothy's language with my structure, I wanted to embody in the text something of this disruption. So I'm just going to share a few short fragments of the sequence with you now so you can get a sense of how I'm using those words and how they start to accumulate. So these are a few small sections from Much with Body. Large, dazzling clouds visit me, amiable, blustering, letters from a lost, dismal house. In night, tremendous showers streaming down my windows. Tolerable, but very dark. Much harmed by sudden mornings, we are again fixed in my still helpless state, in convulsions, and much with body. Misty, muzzling, bird-chaunting morning, gone off in this misty rain. I was very poorly last night, from pain and, better, still in pain. I am weakly, therefore, afraid to go down, afraid of the fatigue of downstairs. Better, though in pain, butterflies and bees amid my gardens. I am free from pain, and I could not join in prayers. Rain continues. Green things burst marvelously into light. Thunder calls, but I cannot see her. Strength much beaten. This should have been May Day. Trees bursting, but I am imprisoned. Sickness, much rain. I am lazy and have no pleasure. Better, tolerably free from pain, attacks. I am no company. Showers sting me. I mend slowly. Pining, earth, transplanted, restored. Rain and the dismal labour of walls fills the room with the road, advances with speed, small red roses and green small leaf. But that is beautiful, solitary at my request. A sweet, gleamy morning supplied me with various flowers till my legs bear me up no longer, traveller. Poor thing, she has a weaning expectation. I do not venture out. So reading Dorothy's Rydal journals, I saw how they reveal the connection between landscapes within and without. I found repeated parallels between the external weather of the Lake District and the internal weather of the body in pain. This connection between external and internal weather gave me the basis for Much with Body and for the long poem Dorothy's Reign, which was first written for the launch of Benbow and Corbett's exhibition, and which gathers every reference to rain made in her lake space journaling from 1824 to 1833. The accumulation and persistence of rain reflects the accumulation and persistence of pain. The repetition and the length encapsulate the repetitive nature of chronic illness. So it's a long poem, but I'm going to read it for you today, and I hope in the questions we can talk about it further. I'm just going to take a sip of tea because, as I say, it's a long poem. And I encourage you to fidget all you need during this. I hope in the questions we might get to talk about the reader or audience effect of this poem a bit. Dorothy's Reign. Rains, frosty, moonlight, heavy, rain, amber, clouds, lighter, rain, showers, lightning, and showery rain, little rain, rainy, misty, rain, heavy rain, rain all day, very rainy all day, rain, rain, rain comes on, rainy morning, wet evening, showers, a little rain, misty, rain, rain all day, rain comes on, hail and rain all day, lightning, heavy, rain comes on, showers, etc., etc., rain, sleet, etc., etc., storm, rain, rain comes on in the evening, rain all night, rainy morning, rain in showers, writing, resting, very rainy all day, rain comes on, in frost, rain and mist clears, no rain, a little soft rain, rain all day, rain very rainy, cold, very rainy, very dark, dark and lovely, no rain, rain showers, after rains, two larks, his love, enchanting, frosty rain, 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 rainy, rainy, and flood, drizzling rain, very wet, rain, breaks, more rain, rain, raining, rain, small soft rain, but raining, cold and rainy, a little gloom at night, a few drops of rain, starlight, rain, a little rain, a little rain, a little rain, mist, rain, no downright rain, but much refreshing downfall, never all day rain, and often delightful, rain, rainy with rain, rain not heavy, rain, thunder in air, very close and fast, thunder showers, headache, very wet and close, heavy rains, rain, no rain, rainy, no storms after all, a veil of mist, mild rain, rain at night, rainy, rainy, a woman killed by lightning, rain in night, clashing sounds, very rainy, now, again hearing rain, rain comes on heavy, as soon as I reached home, coldish, and rain comes on, heavy rain, heavy shower, heavy rain in evening, sheet lightning and distant thunder, very gloomy and threatening, rain, showery rain in the night, slight rain, gloomy, 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 but pleasant, through showers, showery, very showery, rather heavy rain, throwing off her damp coverings. I never saw her so thin. Showers, a few slight showers, wet morning, wet afternoon, wet evening, rainy night, an excessive clearness of the air. Before bedtime, a heavy rain. Rainy, rain, rain came on during, rain comes on before, very rainy, a shower comes on, and rain continues by a note all the way stormy, showery, very wet in evening, rain, showers driven back by rain, heavy rain. At night, very rainy, heavy rain, and heavy in the night, heavy rain, rainy, rainy, streaming rain when they left us, caught in rain, heavy rain, rain again, rainy, miserly rain, heavy rain, some rain, but improving. Rain, heavy rain, our eyes all unexpectedly open on a rainy morning. Rainy, slight rain, heavy rain, slight rain, showery at noon and rainy afternoon rain. Very rainy, rainy morning, rainy evening, showers but not heavy, showers as light as possible with showers, showery day with fine gleams as usual, showery, heavy, rain when slightest of showers, rain comes on, heavy rain comes on, rain at night, drizzly rain, heavy rain, rainy, drizzly rain, very rainy, a shower comes on, showery with a gleam or two all day, rain, impossible, glorious, silver drops, smoky steam, yellow lights, rainbow complete, rainy, rainy, with intermissions, rainy, showery with gleams, storm and rain, stormy and gleamy all day, showers, showery, rain comes on, blustering with gleams, very stormy and wet, rain, so heavy, there's storm, heavy showers, still showery, storm and rain pouring, rain, heavy rain at night, rainy, drizzling, rain in night heavy, rain at night rainy, slight rain, mizzy, rain, heavy, rain, rainy, but not so bad, without rain, rainy, rain comes on, heavy rain, rainy, not throughout rainy, heavy rain, rain, more or less, though not heavy, rain, rain, very stormy and evil, rain with tempestuous gushes, a letter with good reports of weather, flood in night, teeming, ceaseless, such rushes and torrents of rain, a struggle toward moonshine, with much rain heavy, rain comes on, rain heavy before she comes on, very, very rainy fields flooded, in the night, slight rain, rainy, very stormy, rain, very rainy, comes on quite a storm, a few drops of rain, slight rain, rains most, but no rain, a few drops of rain, a good deal of rain, rain in gloom and rain, fog and rain with warmth, rainy, 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 slight rain, rain, rain without rain, rain but not heavy, walked towards rain, rain, heavy rain, rain stops us, slight rain, rainy, rain, very rainy, rain, rain and twilight, rain, rainy, 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 heavy rain, rain, falling without respite, rain, rainy, rain comes on, rain, but rain, rainy, heavy rain, threatening rain, rather gloomy, thundering rain, heavy, rain comes on till evening, in rain, rain, slight rain, gentle rain, threatening rain, rain, rain. So I told you there was a lot of rain, right? I warned you, but you didn't really believe me, did you? So the first time I read this poem out loud, someone said it made them feel sick, although they did add in a good way. I'm not sure how much to believe them on that. And I'm really interested in that reaction. Some people find it soothing in the way that listening to rain fall on a roof or a window can be soothing under the right circumstances. What I've become increasingly aware of in my own body and life is that the circumstances under which we might be able to enjoy certain weather conditions and find them soothing is contingent on a lot of factors in and out ourselves. In her illness, Dorothy did not find the rain and damp soothing, and neither do I. When the rain comes on, every old injury comes with it, and they are many. Rain as time travel, taking me back to the moment of each injury, when each injury was a catastrophe of unknown magnitude. Rain making each injury new, making all times of injury present. Old injuries rising up from the rain-splattered earth like petrichor, stinking of mortality. Soon I am drenched in them, all the old hurts. I am sodden with pain. They are dripping from the tip of my nose. I cannot see for them. No coat can protect me from this, no umbrella, no shelter. A low comes in and pressure builds in my body. This is reciprocity. You think you are a discrete object, but you are only part of the atmosphere grown concrete. You are air and water enclosed by a border you think is a force field, a kind of armor, but it is more faith than solid matter. It is lacework, moth-eaten and threadbare, unravelling. Everything gets through. A low comes in and the bones in every joint of my body grate against each other like all cartilage has evaporated. My body is nothing but bone scraping bone and nerve endings screaming. A low comes in and my mind clouds over. A low comes in and my veins expand, my muscles wilt, my ligaments swell. The synovial fluid in each joint expands like a door in its frame, and each movement sticks, jolts. It is unsupportable. I am an overfilled balloon and the air is all stale. I am gasping for breath in my stretching skin. On the other side of the holy membrane, the sky is a monolith pushing down on me. The stone at the mouth of a tomb rolling into me. And then the rain comes and I am washed away. So that's an extract from an essay on bodies, bad weather and bad clothing that was commissioned by the Moving Mountains anthology of disabled nature writing, which is forthcoming at some point. Dorothy's family believed her illness was brought on in 1829 by walking in bad weather, imprudent exposure during a long walk, which sounds odd, but it was a common enough diagnosis at the time. And this was only confirmed for them all by the amplifying effect cold and damp have on her symptoms through the years that follow. Increasingly, she's kept indoors by rains and cold winds, the air itself oppressing her. The cold, she writes, affects her insides. In letters to friends, she explains how damp is almost as dangerous a foe as the east wind to her. Pamela Wolf notes the violence of the rain in these journals. Carl Ketchum notes the awareness of the physical and psychological limitations imposed by the weather, with its violent shifts, its supposed close ties with matters of health, make it very much an actor in daily affairs and always to be reckoned with. Dorothy treats it with respect and with an undefined sense that it harbours a life of its own. In her 1834 journal, the cold and damp appear as dangerous antagonists, imprisoning Dorothy in her room. Autumn is a threat, a shutting down which presages something worse. Her descriptions of the garden and of the plants and creatures she loves seem increasingly metaphorical. In October, damp and comfortless gloom turns into a storm that floods the valley and damages trees, leaving the ash tree torn and mangled, and Dorothy herself subject to sad, painful days when she cannot get up at all. The damage to the non-human ecosystem is paralleled by internal damage to the human observer. Sarah Doyle has written about how even in her earliest journals, Dorothy's thoughts and feelings are framed within a scaffold of weather, which I think is a really beautiful way to describe that. During her illness, the weather comes to stand in for her thoughts and feelings, a kind of meteorological shorthand. When the rain is heavy, she does not need to remind herself that the pain is heavy too. When she repeatedly writes of threatening rain, she means it literally. The rain is a threat to her health, to her life. This is a common enough experience for people who live with pain and chronic conditions. So many of us who live with pain describe ourselves as human barometers, alert to shifts in the atmosphere, which tick us and the skies from fair to change, predicting downpours of much rain and much pain. In 2015, a research project based in Manchester set out to study the millennia-long associations between stormy weather and pain flares. The project, called Cloudy with a Chance of Pain, studied daily symptoms from over 13,000 people with chronic pain conditions based in the UK over 15 months. Fluctuations in symptoms were tracked against fluctuations in the weather. The results proved conclusively for the first time what our bodies have long testified to be true. The weather hurts. Pain increased with higher humidity, lower pressure, and stronger winds. In 2020, I revisited Dorothy's Rydal journals again as I worked on my biography, Recovering Dorothy, The Hidden Life of Dorothy Wordsworth. Unpacking them in detail, I found myself coming back and back to her descriptions of the weather. As I wrote about Dorothy and her weathers through the winter of 2020 and the spring of 2021, I began to feel we were writing in a strange kind of parallel, as though we were characters in a dual timeline novel. Both years, the spring was unusually cold and late. Her cuckoo sang for the first time a few days before mine. I was also keenly aware that I was writing about someone who could not leave her house or garden during a time I could rarely leave mine, a few miles and a few hundred years down the road. I kept thinking about limitations disabled people live with all the time, of the people throughout history who have lived with lockdowns of whatever etiology. There are times I have felt that my whole life is rained off. It was not new to me to have limitations placed on me by illness, but it was new that the limitations didn't originate inside my own body. The storm was outside me this time, massing clouds on the horizon. Dorothy's frequent complaint of something in the air that oppresses took on a different meaning to me, knowing COVID was airborne. I dare not venture out, I thought. The air deters me. So I was thinking of this again last month as I read Daisy Lafarge's essay, The Ambivalence of Air, written for the Wellcome Trust, in which she traces the history of air as cure and poison. Lafarge writes about the visceral effects within her body of changes in atmospheric pressure. This is a long quote. I feel the ambivalence of air most keenly during drops in air pressure. Like many people, I am sensitive to these fluctuations, a vulnerability I attribute, depending on how whimsical I am feeling, either to my genetic joint condition or to the old wives' tale that being born by the sea, as I was, increases your sensitivity to drops in pressure below sea level. At sea level, the atmospheric pressure is 1013.25 millibars, or hectopascals, referring to the weight of the air around us, which is thought to provide the optimal conditions for the human body. When the pressure drops, as it does before storms, strong winds, and rain, I begin to experience symptoms. My joints ache and swell, my thoughts become slow and fuzzy, accompanied by headaches and low moods. It's a dissociative experience. I feel as if the line between me and my environment has become smudged, blurring me from my body. It's taken years for me to connect this diffuse set of symptoms with a sensitivity to air pressure, and I still find it easy to forget, breaking through the day for more visible, identifiable triggers. But sometimes, in the midst of the blurring effect, I remember to check the barometer app on my phone, and sure enough, find that my symptoms are coinciding with a reading below 1013.25. As Lafarge explains, at optimum atmospheric pressure, the weight of the air pushes against us, applying pressure that constricts the body's soft tissue. This sounds uncomfortable, but it's exactly the opposite. It is periods of low pressure that can become painful for the body when we are no longer tightly held by the air and our tissues and joints expand and swell. We go about our lives with an indifference to air, unaware of the firm embrace it binds us in, literally holding us together. And I love where she gets to with that. So only when the air harms us do we become aware of it. Chronically ill and disabled people are more than usually susceptible to changes in the weather, in temperature, humidity, and atmospheric pressure. We can feel what healthier bodies may continue to live with an indifference to. Stacey Alamo has noted how these sensitivities collapse binaries between nature and culture, human and non-human, revealing our interdependence. When both impending storms and public air fresheners cause pain, diminish mobility, and create mental fog, the environment cannot be readily divided into nature and culture, nor are human bodies and minds separate from wider material interchanges and interactions. In other words, disabled and chronically ill people cannot have an indifference to air, an indifference to landscape, an indifference to the non-human. We are made aware of our interconnection at all times. The social model of disability conceptualizes disability as a product as produced by disabling environments which will not adapt to the needs of a body-mind's impairments. I've been thinking a lot about this over the last few years, in terms of both the disabling environment of a society that will let a disabling virus run rampant, and the disabling environment of a planet in ecological crisis. Can there be an environment on Earth that isn't disabling for those who live with impairment during an unchecked pandemic or during a climate crisis? How can we limit the damage done? In the same way disabled people are more susceptible to local weather shifts, disabled people are disproportionately affected by extreme weather events and by the broader effects of climate change. And I'm going to read some slightly distressing statistics out now as a trigger warning. Equally, extreme weather, heat domes, forest fires, floods, storms, polluted air and water are all disabling events. Of the people in the world most affected right now by climate change, 20% are disabled. As climate crisis progresses, more will be disabled by it. And yet, lots of studies, including one published this year by Sebastian Jodoin and commissioned by the Disability Inclusive Climate Action Research Programme at McGill University and the International Disability Alliance, found that worldwide disabled people were systematically excluded from climate adaptation planning. Recent studies have found that disabled people are 4 times more likely than non-disabled people to lose their lives during natural disasters, echoing the horrifying statistic that during the first year of the pandemic, 6 out of 10 deaths from COVID in the UK were of disabled people. Data gathered during that first wave showed that disabled women under 65 were 11.3 times more likely to die of COVID-19 than their non-disabled peers. These figures increase for the multiply marginalized. In 2021, Indigenous people in the United States were twice as likely as non-Indigenous people to die of COVID. And I think that statistic is still holding today in 2022. This structural racism and ableism puts the same people at the highest risk of the effects of climate change. Disability justice and climate change are deeply entangled. There cannot be one without the other. So to come back to local weather to close, living through the 1830s with Dorothy reminded me to look beyond the threat of bad weather when I felt so very under it, so very confined by it. There are ways to connect with nature which do not require so much risk of exposure. When Dorothy cannot leave her room, she brings the garden into it. Robins nest above her bed, flowers bloom and trees bud in her sick room. Imagination, memory, and poetry become ways to move through the world without risking her body. And even the rain, the threatening rain, has its compensations. When the sun comes out after a storm, it seems to her unearthly and brilliant. She sees every leaf a golden lamp, every twig bedropped with a diamond. There is magic in the rain, rainbows, growth. Though she knows this damp, rainy weather suits us not, she also feels how grateful the pining earth is as it falls. Grateful is a word I missed out when I collaged her words into something else in Much with Body. But it's something I've thought of often in the years since, as I have dreamt of a more caring world. Though the rain hurts Dorothy, she knows the trees and flowers she loves needs it. The pining earth needs it. There is a kind of interdependence here that moves towards a community of care. If we think about what we all need to thrive, maybe we can make it happen. So I'm going to end with a newer poem, a short poem on that note, called Emergency Dream, and then leave you to a break to process. So this is Emergency Dream. There is a path where it is always autumn. You step as soft as you can from the road onto the track through the bracken, under the moss branch into a different season. You couldn't say when. Even in the hottest summer in history, when the ponds have dried into crackle glaze mud and the ghostly trash of the age of industry rises back up, bog bottles, bog plates, and over it all a smell of burning. The path of moss and fox leaves is cool and damp. Portal to the past, dream of forgiveness, of rain and recovery, dream in which all of us get to thrive. Thank you.